I would say this is a part two of the subject discordance. When I was dealing with dysfunctional families and how two people from dysfunctional environments come together, and it's only one that has the interest of making their family, you might as well say, um, social environment more productive and more moral. It was mentioned by a friend of mine, she's a woman, when I had mentioned my kid's mother's mother and how she was made an alcoholic from the cradle. And she said, do you have any compassion when it comes to understanding her struggle? I absolutely do. And if you I thought that I would go through this one and tell you Tina's story, because her mother was named Tina. As before, what I said, her mother, Viola, would run the streets a whole lot. This was before she had gave her life to Christ. She was a loose woman. She would run the streets. She would go out to clubs and bars, and she would drink. She was an alcoholic as well. Now, from further research, when me and my son's mother was together, she and her aunt Jennifer would tell me of how her mother, Viola, who was Tina's mother, suffered a lot of abuse from her mother. And her mother was an immensely evil woman, according to what they told me. And the evidence of that was her offspring. And so, whenever she would be ready to go out to clubs, and if Tina, as a little infant, if she didn't go to sleep quick enough for her pleasing, instead of giving her milk or taking her somewhere to where Tina would be properly looked over in terms of another family member, which wasn't mentioned by them. I'm only going off of what they told me. Instead of giving her milk in her bottle, Viola would fill up her bottle with beer and put that in the cradle with her, and she would drink this beer and it would force her to pass out. We're talking about an infant here, still in the cradle. And therefore, she was created an alcoholic from the cradle. So this is a child that was made an alcoholic from the cradle. And therefore, from that point on, she had this alcoholic related urge for further alcohol. And so whoever Tina was supposed to have end up being in this life outside of alcoholism, she never had that chance to find out, because her own mother made her an alcoholic, as I say again, from the cradle. I'm going to stress that a whole lot because that's very important. So Tina met my son's mother, father. His name was Donald. Obviously, his last name was Donald Lawrence. He was a Spanish guy, to my knowledge, because he was either black and Spanish or he was just Spanish. From what I was told, he was Spanish with a last name like Lawrence. I've always found that to be a bit questionable. And so Donald, who was a resident of California, I don't know a lot about Donald. As a matter of fact, I can barely say that I know very little about Donald. But it is one thing that I was told, not only by my son's mother, but by her mother, that Donald was a heroin addict, and he had been in heroin addict all of his life, all the way until his death. So when those two met in California and they got together, I guess they were living in California for a while because my son's mother wasn't born here in Vegas. She was born in California, Pasadena, California. So they were together, and it didn't work out after they had Tammy, who was my son's mother. So whenever you hear me say Tammy, I'm referring to my son's mother. And whenever I say Tina, I'm referring to Tammy's mother. And so they relocated back here to Las Vegas. Tina got married to this guy named James. His last name escapes me currently. Williams. His name was James Williams. So she marries James. They buy a nice house. James has always been a man who was very productive. And so he worked for the waste company out here. He drove a garbage truck out here. So he made a lot of money. He provided a home. However, he was very controlling and rigid, from what I was told. However, I find that a bit curious, because we have a woman who is an alcoholic, and yet still we have a man who is a very productive man. However, it is told that he was the one with the problem, which I've never believed. I've always felt that Tina was the one with the problem, because Tina was the one with the alcoholic problem that she obviously didn't have any interest of resolving, in spite of being in the presence of a man who was highly productive. That's a opposing type couple when it comes to the living journey and, morality and all of those things. So they end up having a couple of daughters, one named Maria and the other one named Stephanie. So that marriage didn't work. I don't know if they were married. I was told that they were married. But Tammy's mother, she carried her father's last name. And I've always thought that Tina had the most beautiful name. Beautiful name. Because Tina was short for Martina. And her full name was Maylee Martina Kenyatta. Beautiful, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful name. And so her name was Mei Lee, which is beautiful to me. Martina Kenyatta, gorgeous name. And she was a very beautiful, gorgeous woman, like her daughter. And her and Tammy looked a lot alike. And so that didn't work out. And so they left. And so Tina, she ended up getting with this man named Herman Lampkins from Michigan. It escapes me what part of Michigan they were from. I think they were from Saginaw, Michigan. And Herman Lampkins, they used to call him Doc. And Herman Lampkins was a drug dealer and a gambler. And he was a reflection of a lot of the men that I used to see coming up in Chicago, who were influenced from the influential extension of the blaxploitation movies. And what it's meant is that Herman carried himself like he wanted to be a pimp, or he wanted to be Superfly or the Mac. You know, he is what my mother used to call guys of that mannerism, the cool Papa Doo-wah guys, you know, the ones who walk around with their brims on, you know, they always, you know, talk that slang and, you know, and all of that bullshit. He was that kind of guy. And so she ends up with Herman. Herman is married to a woman named Sherry. Now, by him being the type of man that he was, wanting to be a pimp and you know, he thinks he's the Mac and everything, he had Tina and his wife up under the same roof. Now, a lot of people said that's crazy. And for a while, Tammy didn't want me to meet her mother because of her mother's living status. And so after a while, I met her mother, and I met Herman, and I noticed their living condition. And so while me, Tammy, and her aunt Jennifer, we were walking to the store, and I said, who's the other woman? And she said, that's Herman's wife, Sherry. And I'm like, really? She said, yeah. She said, you wanted to meet her. She said, that's what's going on right there. She said, you said you wanted to meet her? There it is, right there. Now, on Tina's behalf, I'm just going to say this. Now, I know that there are a lot of women who put up with that type of arrangement. Today, they call it polygamy. But we're going to put the whole subject of polygamy to the side, and we're going to deal with something very plain. Very plain. There are women who will willingly get into a situation like that because they want to be with this person. by him being a dominating type man over women, he has this pimp type mannerism about himself. So he keeps certain women around him that he can rule over, not only through their minds, but through his physical abuse. And so you're dealing with a woman who was made an alcoholic from the cradle, and therefore she was made mentally limited from the cradle. Now, people may say, what does that have to do with her being an alcoholic? If you study alcoholism, or if you've ever had yourself around a person who is an alcoholic, they are intellectually, you might as well say they're intellectually challenged. And due to the fact that they have been intellectually affected by alcoholism and they're always drinking, their minds are not going to be as sharp, and therefore their judgment is going to be off. They're going to be very off. So this is an environment that my son's mother come up in, because of the alcoholism that had affected her mother's judgment. That's my point right there. Now, considering Tammy coming up in that environment all of her life, in her early development, this is the environment that she's in. Now, by her being a child, her perception is not judged. She's not in the position to where she can cast an intellectual judgment on what she's seeing. That doesn't come until you become a little bit more mature and experienced and intelligent, to where you get to a point to where you're able to make a distinction of what is, and therefore the Creator gives you wisdom in order to cultivate a moral judgment in terms of what's right and what's wrong. However, due to the early development, even though you're able to distinguish what is right and what is wrong, it's the norm, because it's the environment that you come up in, and you accepted it because there's really nothing that you can do to change it. Now, by James, who was Tina's first husband, who was the father of her half-sister, Stephanie, and Maria, as myself, he was talked down to his children simply because he was productive. He was talked down by Tina, their parent. So, this is where Tammy gets her preference from when it comes to men. By hearing her mother talk James down, and she raises her daughters to accept men like Herman, who's a drug dealer, and everything else I mentioned. Her daughters come up choosing these type of men, drug dealers, men with pimp-related mentalities. Now, even though they can perceive that Herman is dead wrong, selling drugs is dead wrong, however, due to the effects of your environment, your attraction and your preference is going to be that of which you think you condemn. So both of her half sisters got with men who were drug dealers. They are no longer with these men. However, for a long time, these were the type of men who they were, I would say, attracted to. But I'll put it like this. They had associated themselves with these type of men because of the effects of the environment by way of her mother's choices of men and by her being an alcoholic from the cradle, which tampered with righteous judgment when it comes to picking men. Now, in the terms of Tammy's preference, what came out of her mouth, she said, I want to live a different life. I want someone who's going to love me. I want someone who's going to take care of me. I want to have a family unlike my own. Our same type of upbringing. Judgment, as far as what we want in terms of family. I come into her life. I'm a productive man, the same as James was. She got together with me because she felt like this is who I want to be with. I like David. I love David. David's a good man, and all of those things. However, with her mother's interference and influence, her mother had a friend named Cece who used to be a prostitute. Okay? Her mother's best friend. So Tammy felt like her obligation and measurement of love towards Cece, she felt obligated to love Cece so much simply because this was my mother's best friend. And so Cece was embraced as a family member. Now, when me and Tammy first got together, I had a small studio apartment out here in Las Vegas because this is what I had to start out in a studio apartment. She found out that Cece didn't live too far from me. So she wanted to introduce me to Cece. So we go over to Cece's place, which was nothing. It wasn't even a 5-minute walk from where we were staying. I met Cece. She was going with a guy named Rico. Me and Rico became very good friends. 3 days from that, Cece comes over, knocking on my door, talking about, I need a place to stay. It was her and her daughter. I need a place to stay. And so Tammy asked me, can she stay here? I'm like, Tammy, no. This is just a studio apartment. So I was so in love, and so I ended up allowing them to move in. Now, my apartment was right outside the manager's office. And you would think that by them knowing that the manager's office is just right over there in the corner. Couldn't you wait until the management closed to start moving all your things in? Nope, they did this in broad daylight. And I told her, I said, they're going to get me put out. They're going to get me put out. So manager had called me into the office one time. And jokingly, he was saying, what's going on? He said, are you sleeping with all of those women? And I'm like, no. I said, I'm just trying to help her friend out. I told him, I said, she's not going to be here long. She's going to be here just for like a couple of days or whatever the case may be. I'm just trying to preserve my place to live. So her and I find out that she was still dealing with Rico. Now Rico had came over one time banging on my door. And so I went outside to talk to Rico. And I was telling him, look, I understand that you and CC are having problems. But man, can you please not come over here and cause problems, because I have to live here. He said, bro, this don't have anything to do with you. This is between me and my woman. And I told him, well, why don't you go get your woman and take your woman back home with you? Are you able to do that? And so I go back in the house, the apartment, and I told Cece, you need to go out there and talk to your boyfriend. I said, because I can't have that going on over here. This was at night. So she goes out there and she talks to Rico. She comes back in the apartment and gave us the impression that we're done and blah, 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 and I can't stand it. However, we come to find out that every time she left, not only did she have her little 13-year-old daughter over there around us, she was going back and forth, still sleeping with Rico. And so it had gotten to the point to where I was telling Tammy, look, this is risking our place. And I think that she's going over there to see this dude. And so me and Tammy go over there and we knock on Rico's door. He opens up the door. We find out Cece is right there in the living room. So we left. And so as we was leaving, Cece was like, are y'all okay? Are y'all okay? And I told Tammy she's got to go. She's got to get her ass out of here. I said, because she's risking where I have to live. I said, you can easily go back and live with your aunt, because Tammy was staying with her aunt when I first get back with her. I like, you can go stay with your aunt. I said, where the hell am I going to go? And so when we told her that she had to move out, who was blamed for that? Me. I was blamed for that. And so there was a big talk about David over at her mother's house about me putting Cece and her daughter out. It has always been me. It was a woman. Her name was Deborah. Okay? She was a close friend to her mother and Herman. They told her that she could move out here with her 3 kids. Now, when she was supposed to have stayed with them. So before she moves out of here, we're over there visiting Tina and Herman. Tina tells Tammy, Debbie's going to need a place to stay, so she's going to have to stay over there with y'all. This is after we had got a 2-bedroom apartment. And I'm like, staying with who? You know what? My mother said, she's going to be staying with y'all. I said, Deborah is y'all responsibility. You guys are the one who told her she can move out of here. So Tammy started running her mouth, and by me being so in love, and as I was trying to talk, Tina was talking over me like, you just shut the hell up. You know, because all during that time, she was influencing Tammy against me as a man. So it worked, and that's why she felt like she could run my house through her damn daughter. And so this woman came out here. And where did she stay? With us. So here it is again. Christmas holiday coming up. I would come home. I had to step over people in my living room. The electricity bill had went sky high because this woman was always cooking, always had lights on. You barely could keep food in the house. So I talked to Tammy. Tammy said, this is getting out of control. I said, I'm telling them to leave. Now it was December the 23rd. I do not give a damn if Christmas is 2 days away. I don't care. You got to get out of my house. I told her, you have to leave. I said, there's a women's shelter down here on Owens. Okay? She got her stuff. I took them to the women's shelter. Soon as we get down there to the women's shelter, she starts crying, and Tammy goes up and hugging her, and it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. Who's the bad guy? Me. I was the bad guy. Did I throw them in the streets? No, I took them to a shelter. So there was another gathering over at her mother's house about how evil David is. David ain't no good. So all of this is being said against me in the environment behind the responsibility of other people. When the only thing I was trying to do was build a family with this one woman who eventually was set against me. So from those experiences, David had a real bad reputation in the family. I didn't give a damn because ain't nobody gonna fucking touch me. But all of a sudden, the man who wasn't messing around and have other women everywhere, I wasn't trying to get at none of her sisters, none of her aunts. I was no good. Tina influenced both Maria and Stephanie to run away from her father. Who took them in? Me. I went through hell. I didn't have a chance at all with that relationship. That's my point. It was doomed to fail because I was taking upon everyone else's burden, and at the same time, I was burdened down with this lying, disrespectful, promiscuous woman that I was with, who treated me like trash. I mean, treated me like trash right in front of them and right in front of my sons. Sleeping with people at the job. As I said, I didn't have a chance. That wasn't gonna work, regardless of having 2 children. I didn't even think my youngest son was mine until he was born, because she was sleeping with this guy at her job under the name Michael Madison, who I'm very good friends with right now on Facebook, because I don't believe in hating another brother because some woman can keep her damn legs closed. When I saw his name on Facebook and I'm looking at his writing, the brother is brilliant. I mean, he's a historian, a black historian. So simply because him and I are on the same level on a whole lot of things, I sent him a friend request. And I'm pretty certain he knew exactly who I was. He knew exactly who I was. But he accepted the friend request. I didn't attack him. We were just exchanging information. We know who each other are. But why should he bring it up? And why should I bring it up behind a vagina? Some old raggedy ass vagina. It's not worth it. So as time went on, I eventually found out that she was still sleeping around on the job. She was messing around with Herman's 14-year-old son. She was messing around with Herman's brother, Robert. Imagine all of this going on right in front of your face, and all you're trying to do is build a family with someone who said that they wanted a decent life. However, because of her upbringing, she was only attracted to men who were no good. And yet still she had a good man who she treated like trash. So a lot of people say, what does that have to do with her mother being made an alcoholic from the cradle? It has a whole lot to do with that. See, this is the curse from her great-grandmother on her mother's side, who was abusive to her grandmother. And she was abusive to her mother. And then her mother comes out accepting abuse from other men. That's the environment. Now, she got with this guy. His name was Kenyon Collins from Chicago. Me and Kenyon kicked it off immediately. Now, a lot of people were skeptical of when her and Kenyon had lost their place. And they were shocked that I had told him over the phone while he was still in jail, if you need a place to stay, you can come here. Now, that shocked a whole lot of people. You know, even her uncle, Pancho, had said, I wouldn't be able to see my son's mother with another man, especially up under my roof. He said, I don't see how you can do that. I told him, I said, number one, all of the hell that she put me through and all of the disrespect that she put me through, it's easy for me to withstand that. It's easy for me to withstand that because I totally let the relationship go. Now, I was the one who told him that he could stay. He was concerned about her because they had lost their place. I told him, Kenya, that's the mother of my children, and I'm not going to see her. Of course, I'm not going to see my sons on the street. And you and I have always gotten along. I like you, bro. I think you're a cool guy. And I'm not going to see you living on the street. I'm not. And he had told me that I would feel very uncomfortable coming there. I told him, I said, Kenya, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm the one that's telling you that you can come here. I said, I'm telling you, bro, that you have that option. I said, because if you and her are going to make it, you have to be together within every single circumstance. I said, plus, I don't want you feeling insecure or troubled with her being here with me and you somewhere else, because he said that he had a brother that he could stay with, but him and his brother, sometimes they don't get along. Now, by my knowing that as soon as he would be out of jail, he was on house arrest for like 6 weeks. And so I mentioned that to him. I said, I'm saying that it would be best for you to stay here because this is a more stable environment. I said, because you're on house arrest for 6 weeks and this is a lot more stable. It's a lot more stable here. And that way you can get past your 6 weeks of house arrest and you'll be fine, bro. You'll be fine. And so when he got out, he came there. Now, when I went over there to help her move in, another brother friend of mine named Carl, we went over there, and he had asked me. I had told her that Kenyon's going to be staying with us, and she was shocked. She said, "What?" I said, "He's going to be staying with us." And so she didn't have a choice but to agree with that, because I told her what I told him. I want him to get past his house arrest. He's got 6 weeks of house arrest, and he's not going to make it over there with his brother. Now, a lot of people were shocked. Even some of her family members were shocked. Man, why do you think Tammy, how is Tammy putting up with that? Because of her upbringing. And I knew that she would accept it because of her upbringing. Now, people may say, what do you mean by that? Her mother accepted the same condition, okay, by having his wife there and her boyfriend. She accepted that. So it's in her genetics to accept it. And plus, she comes up in that type of environment. So yeah, I knew that I could pull that off because of her upbringing. Having 2 men under the same roof with her is equivalent to having 2 women under the same roof with her. I knew that she would accept it because she saw her mother accept it. So as time went on, they moved out and they got their own place. Numerous times she was trying to put Kenyon out. And I told him, she can't put you out, this is my place. Now people, they ask me, how did your sons see it? I talked to my sons about it, and they knew that they were there temporarily. They knew that. The people say, well, you're setting a good example for your sons. I said, intellectually, spiritually, yes, but I made certain that I wasn't going to be an example to them in a sense to where they would follow behind a decision that I made, because there was another reason why I needed him to be there. And as I told him, one day she was at work and they got into it before she went to work. And he said, man, I'm just thinking about just leaving. I said, well, you're going to be taking her with you. I said, because you came here together. I said, and you're going to leave here together. I said, you ain't leaving that thing here with me. I know what you got, bro. I know what you have. Because he had told me one time, man, she's so beautiful, Dave. You mean to tell me, by her being around you a whole lot right now, you ain't never thought about getting back with her? Nope. Not at all. It's not about looks, bro. I told him it's not about looks. It's about respect and moral standards. Now, that's an odd perception of example in terms of my sons being present up under the same roof with their mother and their boyfriend. However, it was easy for them to accept due to the fact that me and Kenyon got along so well. Kenyon used to cut all of our hair. He not too long ago passed away. He overdosed on drugs. So rest in peace, brother Kenyon Collins. Rest in peace. But as this goes on, this is talking about the effects of environment and the root of something in which goes back 3 generations. Her great-grandmother gave birth to her grandmother, who she abused. So her grandmother ran the street in the effects of that abuse and made her mother an alcoholic in the effects of the abuse that her great-grandmother gave her grandmother. And it trickled down to our situation. And this is where we are today. So this is why I bring up the importance of having a good, morally based environment in the presence of our children. It's very important. So we both came from dysfunctional families. Now, mine wasn't as dysfunctional as hers. It's just that mine was a little bit more quiet than hers. Her dysfunctionality was loud and chaotic. Mine was silently chaotic. It just wasn't, love wasn't expressed. And of course, when you're the youngest in the family and your mind and your emotions and everything is a little bit more sensitive and therefore aware and more expecting, and you know that there's something missing. You know, my grandfather, I had a grandfather title-wise, but I never called him grandfather. I had uncles, and I didn't have a uncle and nephew relationship with my uncles. I didn't take walks with my uncles. I would sit in their room sometime, but there was no conversation. We sat in there, we watched TV. No one talked about anything. We would sit in there, we would listen to Richard Pryor albums. Ha ha ha. Everybody's laughing at Richard. Ha ha ha. No discussions about anything. All of these distractions in the environment. And you see what's going on right now, today. Hip hop, music, and everything. Do the families today sit down and have discussions? Do the families today express love and concern? Or just love? Hey, how you doing? It's hard for me to perceive that goes on a normal basis in terms of the mentality of the youth today, because the mentality of the youth today are not giving out any impression that they have love and compassion in their home environments. You know, a lot of what we see today, you don't have to live in the presence of the environment that these children are coming up in to know that there's no love and no compassion and no order, no moral raising in their family. You can just tell by their behavior. You can tell by their language and everything. See, when I was coming up, you go into a home, even to your friend's home. It really doesn't matter how long you've been living in a neighborhood together, probably all your life. We were raised up to where when you enter a person's home, you just don't grab a chair and sit down. See, you couldn't do that living in Chatham Village on the south side of Chicago because we were a village. See, when you enter someone's home, you stand up until you're invited or given the honor. Take a seat, make yourself at home. Then you sit down. See, we were even raised up to where if you just so happen to be down in the basement with one of your friends and you're down there playing and talking and, the mother comes downstairs and she said, hey, it's time to eat. And if she asked you, would you like to stay to eat? It's rude to say no. Because one of the most honorable and most important things that someone can offer you is a plate of food. This is the way we were raised. And so I'm going to use my friend John Beale's mother, Beverly, rest in peace. She asked DA, that's what they called me, for David Anthony. We're getting ready to have dinner. Would you like to stay for dinner? I would say yes. The way that I was raised, never turned down an invitation to sup with people. And that is based upon Yeshua. When Matthew had offered Yeshua, would you like to sup with me? And he said, yes, I would like to sup with you. Now his disciples didn't understand that because Matthew worked for Rome. He was an accountant. He would take people's tax money, and he associated himself with a whole lot of worldly people like prostitutes and everything, and he would have these get-togethers. Now, the disciples had said, you would go sup with a man like this? Yeshua has said, I will enter anyone's home where I am welcome. Do you know how powerful that is? Someone welcomes you into their home. The Quran says, if someone presents you or offer you a gift, you must take it. Now, when people hear must, and concerning the radical and extreme reputation of the Islamic culture, when they say must take it, it's not talking about you better take it. You must take it because it is the right thing to do. We were also raised that if you are offered a second plate of food, always say, no, I'm fine. Even if you're starving, always say, no, thank you, I'm fine. That is because you don't look like a glutton, and it prevents your neighbor from thinking that your parents lack having food at home. See, because the way we were brought up, if someone would ask for a second plate of food, they would give it to you. However, if that happened twice, like one day after the other, the neighbor would call your parents and ask them, are you guys okay? Do you guys need anything over there? Are you okay? And if they said no, why do you ask? Because, David came over here and, I offered him a plate of food 2 times and it was almost like he's hungry. I'm not saying you guys are not feeding him. I'm your neighbor and I'm concerned about you. Do you have enough food at home? They would say, oh no, we're fine. You just know he just got a big appetite. They've been out there running crazy all day, and sometimes they don't take time to eat something. Now, people today, if someone's child would come over, and if they took a second plate of food for 2 days in a row, somebody would be calling CPS, or they say, y'all ain't got no food over there? Blah, 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 blah. That tells you where the world is today. But see, not only was it called Chatham Village, it was indeed a village. We took care of one another. There were neighbors who would watch the children run around in the neighborhood. And if you saw, I'll use myself as an example. And if you saw a child like David 3 days in a row wearing the same clothes, another phone call. I've got some extra clothes over here, look like they could fit David. Would you mind me bringing the clothes over? One of your elders was like, oh, that's very nice of you. You can if you want. You can if you want. Because David does have clothes. He just has a bad habit of wearing the same clothes every day. That doesn't mean that they don't have clothes for their children. I bring that up is because back in the days, our elders showed us a tremendous state of maturity, and as they call it, emotional intelligence today. They were intellectual people. They didn't just, nah, we don't need no clothes over here. Why are you asking me that? We got clothes. That's the world that you're dealing with right now. But it wasn't like that back in the times where I was coming up. So I'm still talking about environment. And what has been lost through the years when the elders passed away. Now, getting back to Tina, who I was talking about, she had started interfering tremendously in me and Tammy's relationship. And when I caught Tammy with her uncle's best friend, that's when everybody in her family just took turns and plunged a dagger into my heart at her uncle's place, who helped instigate it. And so that same night when I caught her, Herman had asked me, he said, what are you gonna do, Dave? I was like, I don't know right now, Herman. I'm still in shock, because I was in shock. Tina said, well, I'm gonna go over here and I'm just gonna go over here and be with my daughter, because she was very happy that the relationship was done. And so she went over there to support her daughter. And therefore, she knew what her daughter was doing. Just like way back when she said, if you don't have a woman somewhere else, you're crazy. because she knew that Tammy was sleeping with his 14-year-old son. She knew that she was sleeping with Herman's brother, Robert, who was no longer with us. Fuck you, Robert. Okay? And I mean that. They say respect the dead. No, it's the living that you need to respect. The dead don't need your respect because they're gone. Okay? I don't care if you're dead. You're disrespecting me. Okay? So good riddance. That's exactly the way I feel. But she saw her daughter doing all of this evil. All of this. And she was overjoyed that the relationship had died. And so, to kill the relationship, when she found out that me and Tammy was still somewhat sleeping together, and Tammy gave me a key to her apartment, when she found that out, because when she was over there one day, I just came in the apartment. And I noticed how she looked at me like, how did you get in here? So she realized that I had a key to that apartment. All of a sudden, it wasn't even a week later, she decided that she wanted to move in with Tammy. Her and her boyfriend, Herman, came in. They moved in with Tammy and my sons. So her objective was to kill whatever was left of that relationship. She wanted to kill it. Next thing I know, Tammy's coming to me. I'm gonna need my key back. I'm like, here, take it. I'm gonna speed this up. So it was one day I came over there. It was daytime. And me and Tammy had got into it about something. And Tina jumped in the middle of it. And I've never heard this woman talk to me like this. And she brought up my two sons, which is not her place. It's not her place to bring up my two sons. You know, their Uncle Jeffrey and their Uncle Pons was over there, and they figured, well, he ain't gonna do nothing because he'll end up, Uncle Jeffrey will kick his ass. Your Uncle Jeffrey will die trying to fight me. He will die. Okay? I'm a professional boxer, and I have a punching power that is insane. Okay? I got Sonny Liston's blood flowing through me, baby. And I've got a punching power that will shake up heaven. And I have absolutely no compassion when I fight. When I come, I'm killing you. I'm coming to kill, bro. So you better take me out. Like Brother Bruce Lee said, you better kill me before I get to you. If I have to fight, you better kill me before I get to you. So without sounding like a pompous jackass, I'm just telling you about me. There was a night that I went over there. And so I wanted to spend some time with my sons. And Tammy struck up an argument because her mother has been in her head. See, what it is, I believe that she was jealous of Tammy because I reflected a very productive James who she used to be married to. And she was jealous of her daughter. That's why whenever Tammy would do things around her that she know would destroy the relationship, she didn't talk to her daughter to try to prevent her daughter from doing it. She actually encouraged it. She encouraged it because she was actually jealous of her. She wanted this relationship to fail. So we're standing up there talking. I'm noticing Tina is laying on the couch and she's looking at me like this. And I looked at her and she was laying on the couch and she had her arms, she had something up under her arm. Until this day, I think she had some type of knife on her or something in case anything jumped off. But I left that night, and as I was going home, I stopped by my mother's place, and I told her what happened, and I told her that Tina was laying on the couch, and she was like in this trance. And I told my mother, I said, I don't know. I said, I see death in her eyes. She didn't look well. And so I believe it was a week later, I bought food over there and everything, and I had a floor model television. And the guy who I mentioned, who was Cece's boyfriend, Rico, he took me over there to get my floor model television because you niggas ain't gonna be sitting up here enjoying my television, talking crazy about me in the midst of my sons. That's not gonna happen. And so he goes over there with me and we snatch up the TV. It upset my oldest son, but I don't care, you get over it. And so as we're putting the TV in my trunk, Tammy's at the top of the stairs because she lived upstairs. She said, that's why your mother is going to die of cancer. Now, even though I heard Tina say, Tammy, you shouldn't say things like that. You should say things like that. Now she's trying to teach her moral standards. Now she's trying to put some morality into her daughter. Well, why did her daughter feel as though she could say those type of things in the presence of her mother? Because she wasn't raised. You didn't teach her any moral standards. This is the reason why this is coming out of her mouth. I bring that up because 2 weeks later, I felt as though I had to go talk to someone because I was under a lot of stress. And so I go to this place out here to where they had counselors, to where you can actually sit down and talk to someone about what you're feeling and what you're thinking. I'm in there with this very beautiful sister talking about the breakup and how hurt I am, and she wasn't giving me any feedback. All of a sudden, my beeper goes off. That was back in the day when we had beepers. We didn't have any cell phones. I look at my beeper, and it's 2:06 p.m. And so I asked her to excuse me. I need to go find a payphone. She said, you don't have to. She said, you can use the phone in, their office phone. So I called Tammy because it was Tammy's number. She picks up the phone. She said, David. And immediately I'm thinking, what's wrong? Are the boys okay? She said, Mama's dead. And I said, oh, wow. Are you serious? She said, Mama's dead. She said she went to this job in Death Valley out here, and they found her dead in her bed, in her bunker area. She died of cirrhosis of the liver. Her boyfriend, Herman, took her to the doctor one day. The doctor told her that she has cirrhosis of the liver. And her doctor told her, you either take this medication or you keep drinking and die. Now, her boyfriend, Herman, was the one who went to the doctor with her. Now, he gets her home. This is what was told to me. He gets her home. She's sitting there on the couch, medicine on the coffee table. Herman comes in, and what did he put on the table? A 40 ounce. And he had 2 more 40 ounces, and he put it in the refrigerator. How can you say that you love this woman and the doctor tells her you either take this medication or you keep drinking and you die? Why are you bringing her alcohol? Environment. Not too long, she's dead. I told Tammy, I said, do you need anything? Is there anything you need? She said, nah, just the boys. And I'm like, I'm just asking you if you need anything, Miss My Pussy. I'm not trying to take advantage of nobody. I'm asking you, is there anything that I can do? Her mind is between her legs, like it is all the time anyway. I told her, I said, okay, well, I'm somewhere right now. I didn't want her to know where I was. I said, I'll be by there to check up on the boys. I went by there. Miss Cece was there. She wanted to come up and give me a hug. I put my hand, nah, I'm good. You know, folks is dying, and now everybody's so moral now. Now you picking up the phone telling me a woman who hated my guts, who destroyed your family, you're telling me mama's dead. So how the hell, how am I supposed to feel? The woman abused my life. How am I supposed to feel? And my family is upset at how I feel about my dad's passing on. And the way he abused me. How the hell you expect me to feel when this man passes on? I have no compassion for people who destroy other people's lives and who are abusive. To me, they all can die. Because I don't want you on this planet. Because people like you make living on this planet very complicated and very hurtful. And so when I hung up the phone, I sat back in my chair like this. And the woman, she asked me, she said, what are you feeling right now? And I told her, I said, most people, when they hear my answer, they would say that I'm confused. I said, but I'm going to be honest with you. I said, I'm angry at her for what she did to my life. And I said, I feel so liberated. And you never know how much of a burden and a weight that a human being puts on your life until that mentality is no longer functioning. I should have been just as sad as her, but I wasn't. I felt liberated. I was happy that she passed on because her primary objective was to keep hurting David. I'm gonna hurt this nigga as long as I'm alive. I'm going to do whatever I can to destroy their family. So she wished death on my mother. Your mother going to die of cancer. 3 weeks later, her mother was gone. And her mother said, Tammy, you shouldn't say things like that. Why do you think Tina all of a sudden told her you shouldn't say things like that? Because Tina knew that she didn't have a lot of time left. She just kept it to herself. She knew. And when I talked to Tammy about that, she said that her mother had came by. Her and Herman had came by. So what does that mean? They came by. So that meant after she killed the relationship, she picked up her stuff and she went on about her business. But it was one night that her uncle had called me. Her Uncle Pancho had called me. He goes over there to Tammy's apartment. You have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old there by themselves while she went to work. He calls me. He said, David, where's Tammy? I said, she's at work. I said, why? What's going on? He said, well, Deshaun and Dylan are over here running around this apartment by themselves. I said, well, isn't Tina there? She lives there, don't she? He said, yeah, but I don't know where she's at. It's just them there. As we're on the phone talking, Tina comes in. She walked 2 blocks up the street to a 7-Eleven, and she got 2 40s and left them boys in that apartment by themselves. This wasn't the wintertime, this was in the summer. I said to myself, she don't care about anything but what is where she's going to find her next drink. That's all she cares about. You want to know why that's all she cares about? You think it's hurtful? In totality, no. She was made an alcoholic from the cradle. Environment, immorality. She was made an alcoholic. But once you get to the point in your development and maturity, and you see the effects of what your habit is doing to other people, you're gonna have to eventually find some type of love inside in order for you to know the damage that you're doing to those around you. Sooner or later, love is gonna have to intervene, and it never did, not even for herself. And that's a shame. That's a shame. That your mother killed you when you was in the cradle. She took your identity from you. She didn't even get a chance to find out who and what she was because she was always inebriated. Always. Always. Do I forgive her? Yeah. Yeah. After God dealt with me and he made me aware of what created her, yeah, I forgave her. Now people may say, well, you just got through saying you was happy that she's dead. Yeah, that too. Because as long as she was living for one purpose, and that was to hurt me and to destroy my family. And she did that right along with her daughter. So with that being said, yeah, I'm glad that she's gone. And she left a big mess behind that was never able to be resolved because she programmed her daughter to destroy her family, and she programmed her daughter to hate a man. A man was the only one who totally, absolutely loved her, borderline worshiped her. She did a lot of damage that just may last for 3 generations. It started with 3 generations of immorality, and there's a potential effect of this lasting for 3 more generations. But I'm going to do my part to end it, as I've been constantly trying to resolve the issue. But I know that the Creator is with me, and I know that the Creator is with their mother, and I know that the Creator is with my sons. It's all going to work out. As Brother Malcolm says, by any means necessary, even if somebody's got to be up out of here. It's all going to be resolved. So my point in this video, I know it was long. Environment, it is so vital. And make certain that any discordance that is in the environment, make certain you do whatever you can to end it. Make certain you do whatever you can to end it. Because it's a poison, brothers and sisters. It's a poison. And with all of that being said, know that love will conquer all things. It's going to conquer all things. And you just got to keep on being human. You got to continue to be humane in spite of what you suffered. Continue to be human. And with that being said, everyone have a beautiful night. Peace to you all.